like I told you, this is for a blog on the World Social Forum and different movements here. So is it okay if we ask you a few questions?
Yes,
about this?
of course.
So could you begin by introducing yourself
Yeah.
and why you're here?
My name is Stephan Christoff. I'm from Montreal, Canada. I work with a collective called Tadamun, which means solidarity in Arabic, and I also work with Alternatives International. I'm here to participate in activities happening in Dakar, Senegal, during the World Social Forum, to build support for and network around the global movement for justice in Palestine, and specifically the global campaign for boycott, divestment, and sanctions targeting the Israeli government. Each World Social Forum is an important space that creates an opportunity for people to network on a variety of issues, including the growing global movement for Palestine. So that's one of my focus points while I'm here.
Great. So what is the kind of response you've got here? What do you feel are the strengths of being here?
Well, I mean, I think it's an important space for coordination. Obviously, the entire forum is happening in the shadow of the uprising in Egypt and in Tunisia. Obviously, those are points of inspiration for social justice movements around the world. The story hasn't fully been told in terms of what will transpire, but the reality is that on the ground, people in Egypt, in Tunisia, but also in Yemen, across the Mediterranean and the Arab world, are rising up for justice. And I think obviously that is having an echo effect on all of our discussions around Palestine. There's Palestinians here, of course, from the occupied territories. But I think all of that's to say that the World Social Forum, I think, creates an opportunity for that type of dialogue to happen. And hopefully that type of dialogue will lead towards action. I mean, that's what we're really interested in. I think, obviously, we can look towards an increase in the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. It's building very, very quickly. I think it obviously takes inspiration from the movement against apartheid in South Africa, an important moment in history for social movements. And I do think that we will see a similar trajectory with the movement for Palestine. And the World Social Forum has helped along that process, just in terms of creating the opportunities for people to coordinate on a global level. To a degree. I mean, I think in the last few years we've seen Palestine move to becoming a priority of the global justice movement, right? Which is a really interesting development in the sense that the global justice movement has incorporated Palestine into its analysis about the situation around the world. I mean, if we talk about apartheid, you know, the reality today in occupied Palestine, the delineation of rights between Palestinians and Israelis based on race and nationality. I mean, we have an apartheid in Palestine, but I think we have a global apartheid, you know, in regards to the distribution of wealth around the world, right? So the apartheid analogy, I don't think it's useful to understand the situation in Palestine, but I think it's also incredibly useful to understand the global situation we're seeing. We talk about the Berlin Wall falling. Obama made a speech only last year about that, but in reality, walls are going up. But if we look to the border of Mexico and the United States, walls are going up. If we look to the borders of Saudi Arabia, walls are going up. So it extends, right? And I think that apartheid reality is being manifested in a very clear sense in terms of the massive influx of policies around the world where walls are a priority. You know, we talk about globalization, free trade, but in fact, what we're seeing is the opposite of that. Capital is moving freely, whereas for people, they're facing walls. And I think just Palestine is a very kind of an extreme example of that global situation, right? And people are resisting it, they're fighting it, you know, and that global apartheid in terms of the economic survival of people around the world, I think in Cairo and Egypt, that's the most kind of grassroots, amazing example of people who are actually fighting when there's nothing left, you know, who are fighting against all odds. And I think people should take inspiration from that. And of course, people in Palestine are fighting every day, you know. I mean, just to survive, to exist in Palestine under occupation is an extreme. And we are living in a country. I think it's important to understand Palestine terms of aid if you combine the total. So Egypt is influenced by the activities of the uprising in Egypt from a broader understanding of the broader situation in the Middle East, and their entire repressive apparatus. Right? So that whole condition creates the context for people to have an uprising. And I think that very much influences Palestine in the sense that for the first time we're seeing, I think, Palestinians not feeling they're alone. And we're also seeing the possibility of people to dream of the idea that this dictatorship will fall. These US-backed and French-backed structures, Morocco to Saudi Arabia, Gulf countries, right? And I think it creates a different possibility in the imagination of what we can dream of for the future of the Middle East, but also for the future of the world. And as somebody from coming from Canada, our government is complicit in this. This process of apartheid economics in terms of who bears the brunt of military repression. Because if we don't stand against this process that is orchestrated by our own government, we need to fight our own governments, which is what we're doing in Canada.